Hey everyone, just a quick video to help sort of clear up the next thing we're going to do, which is something called figured base. So I'm following along with page 149 in the textbook. Basically, what we're talking about here is in the tradition of using Roman numerals, we use something called figured base numbers to show inversions. If you remember, for jazz chord symbols, we use a slash. But here in Roman numerals, when we're using the Roman numerals system, we use numbers, and these numbers are called figured base. Why is it called figured base? Well, these numbers actually show us, their figures, show us what are the intervals that are in the chord above the bass line. Now remember, the bass doesn't mean the root; it means the lowest sounding note. Okay, and it gives us using these numbers gives us an idea of if it's a fifth and a third above the bass, then this is in root position. That's the reason why we're using these numbers. Now, there is a few odd things about the convention, but I just wanted to. That's why I wanted to make a video just to help clear it up. Okay, if you look at the book on page 149, you can see the three chords that are both all three of them are 5 chords. We're in G major. Okay, and the first one's in root position, then it's first inversion and second inversion. And I've also written out a version of this on the video screen here in front of us. Notice that all 3 of these chords, they're in closed position. Okay, so in effect, we're describing the interval between the upper voices and the bass note when they're in closed position. That is to say, there are no other notes that you can put in between these chord tones. This is the most scrunched up way you can present these chords. Okay, in root position, the root is in the bass. That's the D. Okay, and for that chord, you have a third above the bass, which is the F sharp, and then a fifth above the bass, which is the A. So there's the third above the bass, and here's the fifth above the bass. Okay, so that's why the figures for this would be 5, 3. Okay, then parentheses, I'll go over that in a little bit. Next, in first inversion, the bass is an F sharp, and for this chord, the 2 notes above it is a third above the bass, which is an A, and then also a sixth above the bass, which is D. Finally, I have the second inversion chord, and I have the A, it's in the bass. So I have a note that is a fourth above the bass and also a sixth above the bass. If you follow these rules of using these numbers, you will get these chords. Okay, so we're using the numbers as a type of shorthand to tell us what inversion these chords are in. Okay, now for the parentheses, and there's a side note about this on page 150 and the bottom. Basically, the convention has sort of changed so that a lot of these numbers are implied. Okay, and they actually are not written out. So, for example, if it's a root position triad, when you're writing a Roman numeral, you actually don't write 5, 3. You just leave them out. For a first inversion, when you write a first inversion figured base, you just write 6 and you leave the 3 out. It's assumed that the 3 is there. And for the second inversion, you have to write the 6, 4. Also notice that for the exercise of the musician, because of the graphic limitations of the program, they are writing them out as 6/4, but really this is the correct way to write it out, which is a 6 above a 4. The whole thing is superscript. Also watch out, these numbers, although they look similar to numbers that are in jazz lead sheet symbols, let's say a D6 chord, the numbers mean something completely different. Okay, I mean they're related, they're all about intervals. Okay, but they're really talking about something different. So please watch out. Okay, next let's talk about the 7th chords. So I'm just going to adjust this. I'm going to put a 7th on all of them. Okay, we're back. Okay, so these are the 4 types of 7th chords. We have the root position, the first inversion, the second inversion, and a third inversion. Okay, and these are all dominant 7th chords. We're in the key of G, and this is the same principle here. So if you take a look at page 149, for a root position 7th chord, you would have 7, 5, 3 because you need a third above the bass, a fifth above the bass, and a 7th above the bass. In the first inversion, you need the number 6, 5, 3 because you need a third above the bass, which is here, a fifth above the bass, the C over here, and then also a 6 above the base. Okay, so that's why there's 653. Second inversion, you need 643 because you need, again, a third, a fourth above the base, and then also a 6 above the base. Finally, for the third inversion, you need the numbers are 642 because you need a second above the base, a fourth above the base, and a 6 above the base. Okay. Notice that these numbers are just talking about the size of the interval. We're not talking about the quality. We're just counting up the musical alphabet. Okay. Again, it might be a little bit confusing at first, but really these are just, you can think about them as shorthand symbols for inversions. Okay. Now, if you look at the numbers on 149 on page 149 and look at the numbers we have here, they're a little different. Okay, so because the numbers in parentheses, again, we don't use them in convention, and we just assume that they're there. So for root position seventh chord, for example, the number is just 7. The first inversion is just 6-5. The second inversion is 4-3. And the third inversion is 4-2. Okay, so this kind of stuff is useful, I think, for you to try to memorize by using flashcards, and also a way for me to memorize it when I was learning this is to just line the numbers up 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 down the line. Okay, and then there's just, you can remember that 7 means root position, 6, 5 means first inversion, 4-3, second inversion, 4-2 means third inversion. That can be a way to help you remember the inversions and the numbers. Okay, take a look at this on musician and see how you do. Again, remember that on the musicians, the numbers look slightly different because they have to use the slash. But see if you can sort of get the hang of this by using that. Okay.